'Tis the season of the early access shooter. Just a few short weeks ago, we got to bounce around in the pink carnage of Viscera Fest. Following that, we got our first taste of Graven. And just when I thought I was gonna get a breather from all this early access goodness, I start catching a little bit of buzz around something called Doombringer. No, it's not the autobiography of John Romero, although that would be a pretty good name for it, but it is yet another throwback FPS that takes heavy inspiration from id's 90s catalog. In fact, you might have seen it featured during last year's Realms Deep. So I downloaded it, fired it up, and after an hour of play, I was putting on a pot of coffee and setting up my capture equipment, because this is one I think should be on some radars. What's up everybody, I'm Kirk, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the early access release of Doombringer. But before all that, please remember to subscribe and ring that bell for more videos about 90s video games we just can't shut up about. Alrighty, let's begin. Developed by Anomic Games, which is comprised of veterans of the Doom and Quake modding communities, Doombringer's goal is to take the blistering fast gameplay of a competitive arena FPS and place it within a single-player campaign experience, while still featuring a kick-ass multiplayer mode. The game is set in a war-torn post-apocalyptic future where humanity survives within gangs, brotherhoods, and orders, who are rivals for supremacy. You and your squad have infiltrated an enemy organization's facility to steal their resources, when suddenly you're ambushed. With his squad decimated, it's up to your top-hatted character to complete the mission and, you know, slaughter everything that moves. The game takes plenty of inspiration from id Software classics like Doom, but its veins run with the thick brown blood of Quake. In fact, the game is actually being built in the Quake 1 engine, more specifically the Dark Places source port, which updated the Quake engine for modern hardware and provided it with some contemporary graphical bells and whistles. It's the same engine being used for 3D Realms and 1C's Wrath Aeon of Ruin, another throwback shooter I highly recommend. Doombringer is a game built on Quake 1 tech with a campaign that vibes Quake 2, but ultimately has more of the feel of Quake 3. In fact, I've seen some comments thrown around online saying it's the Quake 3 single-player campaign we never got, which I suppose is an apt way to describe it. This $15 early access release features the first of 3 episodes, the Grindhouse of Toddlemer, which consists of 9 meaty, complex levels, as well as a competitive multiplayer mode. Initially, Doombringer didn't make the strongest first impression on me. The game starts you out with nothing but your fists, which isn't a big deal except for the fact that melee feels awkward and not terribly effective. And the first hallway you enter is full of gun-toting enemies who killed me several times in a row to my embarrassment. Eventually, getting past this, with the help of a nearby pistol just out of sight, I came into another room that I would also describe as awkward, with uneven footing that was flooded with enemies, leading to cramped combat. When I found the shotgun, things began to improve, especially with the spiral staircase following that let me leapfrog enemies to the afterlife. But I have to be honest, at this point I feared I was in for a rough one. But then I began level 2 and started going, oh damn, this is fun. Then I hit level 3, 4, 5, 6. I was glued to this game. Several hours passed in a blink. That's how much fun I was having. Doombringer nails the feel of a classic arena shooter. The movement, speed, responsiveness, especially the shooting. Chunky and full of oomph. It's pretty much Quake. The best aspects of the original 3 Quake games clumped together and marinated in Doom sauce, with all the delicious bunny hops and secrets you could ever ask for. But mechanics are only one part of the recipe. Level design is the highlight of this game. Doombringer was built by veterans of the Doom and Quake modding community, and it shows. Maps are big, complex, and vertically stacked, or maybe layered is the better word for it. Built in a way where you can just glide through them, like a well-folded paper plane. And in case the word speedrun popped into your head, the game features a speedrun mode and the option to remove enemies from the map, in case you wanted to study them. Resting is discouraged. Enemies are placed in every tricky corner. Keeping your head on a swivel is a must, and I do highly recommend caffeine for this game. Is it perfect? No, of course not. What is? The large map sizes and complex designs can make some navigation confusing, especially on a first-time playthrough, and where the initial levels feel like a roller coaster of combat, blowing through enemies like the death train you are, the final levels of the campaign are an exercise of how many baddies can we throw at the player before it's basically Serious Sam. The hordes of enemies can be overwhelming, especially on tougher difficulties. A worthy challenge indeed, but compared to the earlier levels, these saturated maps can tip more into frustrating than fun. Even worse, the enemy AI has a nasty habit of getting stuck on the level geometry, which is only exacerbated by larger counts of them. The enemy roster is familiar for this type of shooter, and it's easy to draw the parallels between them and their classic id shooter counterparts. Normal soldier types will pester you with their projectile shots, and hit-scanning shotgunners will keep your ego in check when you're getting a little too confident. Mantis-clawed mutants are eager to rush and surround. Like the fiends from Quake, they are able to jump great distances to sink their claws into you. These big brutes will give you something to dodge with their volley of bouncing grenades, probably the most overused enemy type of the game. In fact, the sounds of bouncing grenades was starting to drive me a little nuts towards the end of the campaign. And then, of course, the albino cacodemons. No other way to really describe them, honestly. Floating around and firing their big purple energy balls. There's nothing really new here, but each enemy requires their own strategy, with the true challenge of the game coming from the differing combinations of them. Like the enemies, weapons also draw directly from classic id games. The pistol is similar to the one from Quake 2, with projectile-based bullets, but oddly a reload after 4 shots. Not entirely sure why this is in there, seeing as no other weapon needs to be reloaded, but it's not something that ever really got in the way. The shotgun I was basically having a love affair with, as you can see by most of this footage. I have no complaints here. This is the type of boomstick that made me fall for boomsticks in the first place. The grenade launcher is also a thing of beauty, with an arc that could be a hair higher, but still provides the messy results you would hope for. The lightning gun gobbles up ammo quickly, but can be devastating to groups of enemies. A good weapon to have when you find yourself in a tough spot. And chain gun is chain gun, able to rip fools apart with a rapid stream of bullets. Doombringer also features a super shotgun, railgun, as well as a rocket launcher, although unfortunately I did not come across these in the campaign. However, I haven't found all the secrets yet, so there's a chance they're hiding in there somewhere. But here's me playing with them in some of the multiplayer maps. Speaking of multiplayer, there is indeed a full multiplayer mode, complete with various maps and classic game types: duels, free-for-all, and team deathmatch. The problem, and I hate to say it, is that there was no one to play with. Every time I tried to get multiplayer going, I was met with nothing but goose eggs for player counts. From what I could gather, most of Doombringer's multiplayer has been done through organized tournaments, and it appears it just doesn't have the player counts to just casually pop on for a round or two. Hopefully that changes in the future. In the meantime, here's some footage I pulled from YouTube so you can see what the multiplayer looks like in action. If you are someone who is more drawn to the multiplayer side of things and are nervous about throwing money down for a ghost town, the good news is that the multiplayer mode is available for free as the game's demo, so you can check it out with little consequence. So far, I've had mostly good things to say about Doombringer, but if there was one area where I have criticism, it's in the game's visuals. Let's start with the positives. From a technical standpoint, Doombringer is impressive. It may be an updated form of it, but this is still the Quake 1 engine, and seeing higher quality models, real-time lighting effects, and crisp-looking reflections is a treat. For the most part, the enemy designs are interesting. The trench-coated soldiers kind of felt like punk rock versions of the Combine from Half-Life, and I dug the more eccentric, decorative weapon designs, like my beautiful blue shotgun here. On top of that, the intricate, complex architecture of the levels is something to behold. And while I have a chance to mention it, the game's soundtrack is an appropriate mixture of retrowave beats and moodier ambient tones. It complements the game nicely, and if you listen closely, you might hear some callbacks to classic id Software themes. But what lets this game down are its bland textures and muted, washed out color palette that makes the overall game look flat and unremarkable. I think Doombringer is going for a steampunk vibe, and the fact that I'm saying I think is a problem. The art direction is a little all over the place. At times it felt steampunk, but then there was more medieval aesthetics mixed in, with dirty futuristic stuff and also hints of retro futurism. A lot of it just felt kind of thrown in. Don't mistake that for me saying it's messy. It's not. It just doesn't feel very well thought out. The overall downside of this is that compared to the games that inspired it, Doombringer lacks a sense of atmosphere and character. At least it did for me. Here's the thing though, I could sit here all day and pick at this game's graphics, but the fact of the matter is, Doombringer was a game that hooked me to the point where I lost time playing it. And you know what? If a game is fun enough to do that to me, I couldn't give two pale cacodemons how it looks. Doombringer has it where it counts. But if it is possible, I do think the visual presentation is something this dev team should reassess and improve for future updates. Doombringer doesn't bring much new to the table compared to other throwback shooters, but what it does very well. This game has a firm grasp of what made old school arena shooters so much fun, featuring incredible level design and satisfying movement and shooting. It was a blast to play through and a blast to replay through. If you're someone who wants a no-nonsense Quake-style shooter experience that will get you sweating a little, or you're someone who has always wondered what a Quake 3 single-player campaign might have been like, then give this one a shot. I think you'll be just as pleasantly surprised as I was. For everyone else wary of the early access model, follow this one on Steam and keep an eye on it. This is an indie effort shaping up pretty damn nice. But what do you guys think? Is Doombringer something you're interested in checking out, or have you played it? What are your thoughts on it? Be sure to let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to subscribe, like, and ring the bell for future uploads. It's a couple clicks for you, but a massive help for this channel. And be sure to come say hi in the Kirk Collects Discord, linked in the description below. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.